Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is Unified Admin Experience for Finance and Operations apps, and is generally available. My name is Rich Black, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Microsoft Teams Town Hall. The session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation, and when you join this event, your name and your email address may be viewable by session organizers. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. If you do not consent to be part of the recorded session, please disconnect. Note that the recording will be made available in the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page in the coming weeks. If you have questions for the presenters or need some help, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. If you wish for your name not to be visible to organizers or session participants, please post your questions anonymously. Our presenters and our assistants will be responding to your questions throughout the session and in a live segment at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your patience during these initial announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Saurabh Kushal, Principal Solutions Architect, and Lane Swenka, Principal Product Manager. So, over to you, Saurabh, to get us started.
Thank you, Rich. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here. We have a jam-packed agenda, and we'll try to keep you busy for next 1 hour. We are super excited to finally reach to One Dynamics, One Platform journey on unifying the admin experience. Today, we are announcing the generally available. We will have in agenda the roadmap review, how the journey has been so far and what's ahead. We'll also talk about how you can onboard to implementation portal from Power Platform Admin Center, some of the license and storage requirements, which are a little different than LCS. And we'll also talk about all kinds of environments, developers, sandbox, production environments, how you can deploy those in the Power Platform Admin Center. In the end, we will talk about how you can service maintenance settings, such as service updates, quality updates, code deployments. And in the end, we will just end with the takeaways. So let's start with roadmap review. As you know, many of you know, we have been on this journey from last many years. With One Dynamics, One Platform, it started somewhere around 5 to 7 years ago, and we have been on this unified admin experience, starting with trials. As you might know, Project Operations, which was one of the first one, which was built on FNO as well as on Dataverse very early. That was a trial light up in Power Platform Admin Center much earlier than finance and supply chain management. And we also have commerce trial as well now. And after that, what we have is all-in-one template deployments. So what we have created is when you create an environment in Power Platform Admin Center, you can choose one of the templates. So if you choose, let's say, finance template, it automatically comes with some of the add-ins, finance add-ins. If you choose supply chain template, it comes with some of the supply chain add-ins, such as inventory visibility or planning optimizations. Then we focused more onto the unified development persona, UDE in short, right? So that's where we started our journey. We connected to unified development. And Lynn, over to you on this one.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. And hello, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. As we've been on this journey, we wanted each phase to really stand on the achievements of the prior phase. And so, as Saurabh mentioned, trials was really our way to get that all-in-one template at the end of the day. So we have this way to deploy something on top of Dataverse in the context of a Power Platform environment with all of the different ERP apps and software installed, ready to go. But we knew that just having a running environment's not enough. 99.999, like 6 nines percentage of customers customize the system. It may in fact be one of the reasons you chose to purchase FNO as your ERP of choice. And so we spent the majority of 2023 and 2024 getting this unified developer environment online. And that took a lot of engineering around how do we connect Visual Studio to a live AOS, right? Because you're not running everything in a virtual machine anymore. Even the developer environment is a hosted by Microsoft product, just like Sandbox in production. So we built the Visual Studio tooling so that you can connect to one of your dev environments, but you can essentially do all of your development offline. You can do it on your own company desktop or laptop, as the case may be. You could certainly choose to use a virtual machine for development as well, just for the essentially the Visual Studio workspace. And then from there, being able to write your code and hit publish, it sends those X++ files to the AOS, and Dataverse essentially recycles the system, reflecting your changes relatively quickly. This was a little bit of a painful journey. We started where I think pushing code took minutes. So it was one of those, like, in the beginning, it was a big step back from our current experience in LCS, but we think now it's in a much better place. And in fact, in some cases, maybe faster, depending on how you had things configured previously. So really excited with where that has come along. And of course, not only just right-click publish to see changes in a dev box, but how do we then get code from dev to test and then eventually production? We spent some time here as well looking at ALM and packaging. Power Platform already has a rich ALM story using tools like Pack CLI or Power Platform CLI to take Dataverse solutions from one environment to the next, and so on. And they use a process called creating a package. We now use the same Dataverse packaging that Dynamics CRM uses. X++ files and the DLLs that are compiled are put into those same packages, and then essentially you can move them along the same ALM train that you would like, all controlled through Azure DevOps. So that was the majority of 2023, 2024. And then we started to set our sights onto unified sandbox and just general testing. So with that, Saurabh, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Lane. So as we have developed the pipeline and the how you can deploy the unified developer environment, which was primarily single AOS and with dev tools, we switched our focus to unified sandbox, right? With the unified sandbox, of course, no sandbox, no dev tools required. We started working on app updates and servicing, right? So we have those available now, where these environments get automatically updated based on the cycle, based on your updates, and automatically getting quality updates as well. You can do SQL JIT in time access through Visual Studio for Unified Sandbox. It gives you the read access. Please note, in UDEs, developer environments, you get read and write both. But in Sandbox, for debugging, for troubleshooting purposes, you get read access to that data as well. You can do copy, backup, restore, all the environment lifecycle operations similar to LCS. It's a little different in PPAC, so I highly recommend you to try it out and learn about those. And we will talk more about copy as well in this further session. In copy, if you will see, right, it does copy little differently than LCS. In PPAC, in Power Platform Admin Center, it copies both code as well as data from your source. So it brings everything. Let's say you have customizations, you have your ISVs, you have your, of course, data. All things will be coming together with the Microsoft version as well as ISV codes to your target environment. In copy, we also built transaction-less copy, and the reason for that was storage, right? The storage was getting higher and higher for our customers, and more and more challenges related to that. So by default, if you will do the copy in Power Platform Admin Center, transaction copy toggle is by default on. If you don't, if you want transactions as well, then you should do the turn off that toggle. So please take a look on that one. Backup is a little different too. It's not like creating any backpack file in your asset libraries or those. What backup and restores are more of like a timestamp. You can note down that it takes a note of the timestamp, what time it took the backup, and then you can restore to that point wherever you have the backup points. With sandboxes, we also talked about we since it's not one AOS, it's multi-AOS, we brought the elastic compute or auto scaling. The reason for that is we wanted to have one tier or single tier or no tier concept tier X, right? So the reason for those ones is to make sure all the sandbox or productions are sized according to user licenses. So based on your license requirements, license purchased, you will get that scaling across sandbox, across production through elastic compute. Now we were going towards unified production environment, right? Where to make sure we have another feature in Power Platform Admin Center called Convert Sandbox to Production. And we definitely were looking to leverage that in finance and operations world too. So what we have now, you can convert any of your sandbox environment, which you think is ready for production, you can convert that sandbox to production environment. The benefit or one example I can give is, let's say you keep your gold environment before implementation as your production. You keep its access intact, you keep its data intact, you keep its code intact, and you may create a gold environment as a sandbox environment, and that gold could be named also as your future production URL, right? The naming itself. And then when the time is right, when you think, yes, you have a good decision for the go live, you can convert that environment to your production environment. So it makes the whole process much easier, much smoother, and much faster as well. Of course, you can create unified prod directly production environment as well. If you are looking for another environment, brand new environment, you can copy from sandbox to prod just through copy, and you can also create through that. I think after this, Lane, over to you to talk about app insights, batch monitoring, and future.
Absolutely. So, of course, with any ERP system, monitoring the health of the environment is paramount. And so we've leveraged the best-in-class monitoring solutions from Azure, namely Application Insights. This is actually something that started a little bit in parallel or separately from the overall unified admin experience. And has actually been kind of in play for several years now. This continues to get enriched with each regular release of F&O. More and more metrics and hook points are available. Of course, you can customize the monitoring solution as well. So you can say, hey, these things that are not monitored out of the box, I would like to start monitoring them. And then from there, you can actually become a little bit more proactive in terms of alerting and auto healing type techniques. In addition to App Insights, we've started to release various different kinds of monitoring agents. I believe Batch was one of the first out the door, and I believe funded by several of the folks from FastTrack here today. So this is, again, just directionally where we're going from a proactive experience where we have agents running on your behalf, making sure that things are running in an optimal fashion. In addition to that, of course, one thing that Power Platform hasn't had, and of course, across this journey, we've tried to align F&O to the Power Platform, right? It's all about reducing the layers of just, frankly, difference between how F&O behaves and the rest of the Dynamics portfolio behaves, so that new customers have less to learn in terms of, adopting one product versus another, one admin experience versus another, right? Alignment and unification, simplification. But in cases where something that F&O needs is missing, we've decided to build it in such a way that it's not just for F&O, but other products could leverage it in the future as well. So this really kind of tees up the work we've done around the Dynamics implementation portal and all of the rich go live reviews, assessments, proactive telemetry-based assessments, and so on. All of the things that you've been doing with LCS and the implementation portal, you can now start to do with Power Platform Admin Center and the implementation portal. So there's a new environment group-based experience there that we will show here today. And that gets us to where we are here, where we are right now as of today. And so, as you can see, the last 5+ years has really been focused on getting the core components in place so that new customers, anyone who buys the licenses and the product from this point forward, will just go to Power Platform. They'll never have to go to LCS and never have to go through any kind of a change in process or a change in the way of doing things. But certainly we want all customers to be in this new experience, right? And so migration is the key thing that is our sole focus, I would say, for 2026 and beyond, so that we can have a very smooth migration process. I don't have a ton of new capabilities to share around migration just yet, other than to say that is what our engineering team is focused on now. And starting in February, new customers, even if they accidentally or purposefully visit LCS, they will not be able to create new implementation projects there. Instead, the system will detect that and route them back to Power Platform to get started. So with that, that was just a flyby of the last 5 years of all of our lives. I'm sure many of you may be nodding as you're hearing some of these things, or recall, participating, giving us feedback as each one of these individual milestones came to life. So thank you with all of that. I believe I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Saurabh to take us forward.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, it has been an amazing journey, and for all of you with community to support and provide us feedback and focus on this one. So as you know, so we definitely want to announce, you might have seen this slide before too. We had this vision from long time, one admin across Dynamics 365 Power Platform and one admin center. Today we can say, yes, we are finally GA on this one, where through Power Platform Admin Center, you are managing F&O as app, sales as app, all under one environment. It provides that all environment lifecycle, such as copy, restore, backup, delete across environments or across apps through single lifecycle. And also it provides rich set of APIs. Yeah, right. This was very much demanding in our admin personas, right? It was much missing in LCS. Now we have CLI, PowerShell, REST APIs, where you can bring automation, let's say environment creation to environment copy. Everything can be done through automations now. And let's say you want to create 10 new environments, you can create 10 new environments through PowerShell, through CLI. Or even through API or through automation, ultimately, very much easily, which was not really possible in LCS. So now you can be more hands-free. There is also option of MCP, where we have Power Platform Admin Center MCP as well, which can create copy environments too. So I highly recommend to look for more automation in this route here. Lane, I will give the floor to you on portal. Yeah, in implementation portal.
Absolutely. So again, this is one of those key features that LCS has had for, I think, its entire existence, at least certainly from very early on. And one of the initial things that you have to do in LCS when you create your implementation project is you have to fill out what I like to call 100 questions, right? And many of us are just used to that, right? We sit down with the customer, we create their project, and we fill out, how many users do we have? What features are we going to turn on? Who's going to be the main points of contact for this, that, and the other thing? We have to set up connections to Azure subscriptions, Azure DevOps. We've kind of flipped that around to say, actually, first, go ahead and get your sandboxes stood up, maybe even some developer environments, get your initial environment footprint going, and then put those environments into an environment group. Environment groups are a concept that my team manages across all apps and services in Power Platform. It's typically used today for low-code management and governance at scale. So you can put thousands of developer environments and so on into a group, right? All of the proliferation of Copilot Studio agents and so on. Put those all into one group. And then on the rules tab, you can actually manage settings and governance controls in one place across all those 1,000 environments. Well, with ERP, we may not be talking thousands of environments for a given customer, but still we'd like to manage those together as a project. And so really this kind of starts to treat environment groups like projects. And so you can put your ERP environments into a group. And then on the rules tab, there's actually a way in which you can turn on the integration. So this is in preview available now. We are rolling it out slowly to each region. So it'll take about another 4 to 6 weeks to show up everywhere. But if you want to be an early adopter, please just reach out to us and let us know. And we can turn it on for your tenant specifically a little bit early. But essentially, this allows new customers to say, hey, I'm an ERP customer. I would like to use the FastTrack process, the success by design approach, which we've been refining for years to essentially give you all those best practices and guidance along your journey, filling out go live reviews and assessments, and of course the telemetry based assessments as well. All right, I think we can move forward.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the new things required for licensing and storage perspective, everyone, in Power Platform Admin Center. So some of the prerequisites around that, all right? In LCS, obviously, as long as you have the project owner access, a very basic one, you could have created environments and copy and all those things, but not in PPAC. In Power Platform Admin Center, it's much more controlled, much more secured, and you need to have some of the admin personas roles from the Microsoft Admin Center. So either you are global admin, tenant admin, of course, those users can create environment, but also to create environment, if you don't have those roles, you can have at least assigned Dynamics 365 administrator or Power Platform administrator. If you have one of those as well, you will be able to create, manage all those environments very well too. Another strategy, right? So you can have one administrator who has these roles, and that user can add, that administrator can add other users who need to access that environment. With that, the other users, let's say user 2, who is not D365 administrator, they will be also able to see those environments in Power Platform Admin Center. So in Power Platform Admin Center, basically you will see what you have access to. On the tenant level, you may have hundreds of environments, but you may be able to see the only 10, 20, or 100, depending on the access you have on those environments. Another one is licensing. So it does also check that user have license or not. So if administrator is creating that environment for that user, it needs to have one of the license assigned, either finance, supply chain, projects, or commerce, depending on the template you are going to choose. So that is a must for the finance and operations app to be installed. So that also check is available right now. It does check that, and you can choose one of the template which we discussed earlier. We do have finance template, supply chain template, commerce template, project ops template. So any of those template will create the whole finance and operations app. So it's not like it's only installing finance or only installing SCM. It will install the whole finance and operations app. The only difference will be some of the add-ins, some of the different capabilities of finance or supply chain or commerce, and vice accordingly. And another prerequisite is storage capacity. A check is there that it's similar to Dataverse, it's similar to Dynamics 365 apps, to a minimum of 1 GB is required for the database capacity to create or copy. So that is also a check. So we all need to, our recommendation here is we all need to change our mindset here. In LCS, we have been very much into slot-based, environment-based environments, and we create them as we go through the implementation. Our recommendation now is more like a deploy when you need what you need, right? So if you don't need an environment, you can delete it. Environment creation is much faster, much easier, and even automated if you want to go that level. And you can also create environments, any number of environments. It's not like you are buying tier 2 or tier 3 environment slots and then only deploying it. You can, as long as you meet these prerequisites, right, you will be able to deploy more environments as needed. One of the new thing happened, many of you might have seen this, starting December 2025. What happened is we have converged the storage capacity to one capacity called Dataverse capacity. So now all the operations related capacity is crossed. That's why I have just strike them, just to make sure you have that visibility. And we also increased some of the entitlements. The increase was due to converging into one, since customers were having challenges. Oh, I'm full on my operations capacity, but I am not using a lot of Dataverse capacity, and I would like to pick on that. So that also scenario is solved with this. And another thing is AI, right? With agentic scenarios, we are seeing a lot more data processed, a lot more data is required, even for us, for the standard side. So that was the reason we also increased some of the entitlements. So I'm not going to go through whole thing, but yes, if you look at some of the licenses like device, earlier you were getting, let's say, 600 plus 100, 700 MB together for each device license. Now you get 2 gigabytes of database capacity for that one. Same for activity. Earlier you were just getting 375 MB for activity storage. Now you get 1 GB of storage on that one. We also recommend look at the premium license now. The price difference is there, of course, right? These are retail prices, but also look at the difference in terms of storage capacity. With base user, you get 5 gigabytes of storage capacity per user, but with premium license, you get 10 gigabytes of storage capacity. And this is not it, right? You also get 1000 MCS credits with premium license as well. So it gives much more capabilities, of course, in the product. You can use some of the premium features such as demand planning and BPP, but also gets extra storage as well as MCS credits. So highly recommend to go for premium licenses and get more benefits from the product. I will also have a quick demo on licensing a hub. You can go through aka.ms/ppack. As I mentioned, right, we have converged the storage capacity. So that's where we'll show that. So I'm into Power Platform Admin Center here. And just going through licensing hub, went to Dataverse, and sorry, this is little blurred and it's little on purpose just to not share some of the data. But yes, you see only 3 storage types at that Uber level. You see database, log, and file. And if you're looking for storage types even differently, like I want to still know my operations or Dataverse, what is my separation, you can still see that down here. You can also see how your usage is on the pay as you go. We also have another button, see Dataverse capacity per license. If you click that, for each user, for finance, supply chain, based on your capacity user license, you can see how much capacity you are getting across these environments, across these licenses. So yeah, that was a quick demo on this one. Now let's talk about how you can deploy developer sandbox production environments. Lane, would you like to cover this?
Absolutely. So, of course, the various different environment types we have, we kind of mentioned some of these along the roadmap, but we'd like to double click in and give you a little more detail. So, for lack of, a strong developer type that we could use, there is technically a developer type environment in Power Platform Admin Center, but do not be tempted to use that. The developer typed environments in Power Platform are specifically for low code. They only work with Power Apps, flows, and agents. They do not support Dynamics 365 of any kind. That includes sales, field service, or now, of course, any of the F&O applications, because we've tried to align F&O with the rest of Dynamics 365. So what does that mean? What do other Dynamics 365 customers use for development? Well, they use Sandbox. So technically, developer environments and sandbox environments are both environments of type sandbox. So to differentiate that and to make it easier for us all to talk about it, we've kind of come up with our own naming conventions. So we have unified developer environment, unified sandbox environment, and then lastly, unified production. So you may hear UDE, that phrase referencing unified developer environment, USE, and UPE for the others. So developer environments are environments of type sandbox, but they have a single AOS behind the scenes. And again, this allows you to connect Visual Studio with the developer tools installed to that system so that you can recycle the code on that environment. So I can use my work laptop that is domain joined. It has all of my company security and governance controls, all of the group policies applied. And I just use Visual Studio, right? And I can use agents, GitHub Copilot, and so on to help me write the code that I need to write, including X++. And then I can deploy that code to the developer environment. I can also access SQL with read and write access to fix, data problems and work through data migration challenges and so on. This is all done with an online environment, so you're not bringing the data, the database, the backpack, all of the challenges we used to have with LCS to get data moved around. Now you just copy production environment directly to a developer environment. It takes, an hour-ish, depending on the size, and then you instantly have a developer environment that is ready for use. So we find this to be extremely efficient and get a lot of positive feedback from that. Next up is Unified Sandbox, which again is a environment of type sandbox, but it is not limited to a single AOS. It has the same maximum potential as your production environment. So getting back to elastic compute and scaling, Sandbox could grow up to 10 AOSs in size if your production environment could also grow up to 10 AOSs in size. And again, it's all based on the usage. So if you're using the environment actively, it will scale out and up as needed. If it is not being used, it will eventually scale in. The scale in typically happening when there's either dark hours, routine maintenance, or you do some kind of a code package deployment. Likewise, production environment, of course, that is where you operate your business out of. This is a little bit of a different strategy on how we go live. We'll talk about that in just a second. All of these environments can be created through the UI, through PowerShell, and through our public APIs as well. And so really, you can spin up, 10 developer environments. We actually had a customer yesterday start their project, and they spun up, I believe it was 4 or 5 developer environments in under an hour. So it was pretty cool to just see them do that so quickly. And so we can go ahead and switch to the next slide. And we'll talk a little bit about Go Live. So typically, you would, in LCS, have a golden environment. Sometimes that was just a CHE or a cloud-hosted environment, somewhere that you're storing all of your configs, maybe some master data as well. And you would copy that into a sandbox, maybe do some data migration into it. And then finally, on the Go Live weekend, you would copy that sandbox into the production environment in LCS. In Power Platform, you don't have to do that last step. Essentially, you can create a sandbox with the name production, right? So I'm going to call it lane production is the name of my environment, but I'm creating it as a sandbox initially so that I can copy that golden database into it and do all of the things I need to do around data migration. And then when I'm ready to go live, there's a button called Convert to Production, and it actually changes the environment type from sandbox to prod. And why is it so simple? Because really there's not a lot that changes. There might be some disaster recovery and some other components for production, but otherwise the scalability, the number of AOSs, the performance between sandbox and prod should be like for like. And so you can essentially just convert your environment to production. It maintains the same environment ID. It keeps the same environment URL, so you don't have to share something different for people's browsers to log in. And this allows you to have high degree of confidence if you are doing any kind of testing early on in your project, performance testing, data migration testing. If you're not getting the performance you want in Sandbox, it's not going to be any faster in production. So that should be an early warning signal. And we hope just be really transparent with customers, because in LCS today, that is unfortunately one of the common pitfalls, is that you can buy a really expensive and fast sandbox, and then your production environment is sized based on your license purchase, right? And so you could see something significantly slower at go live, which can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of challenges. You should not have that problem in Power Platform. So we're hoping that just makes go live a little bit easier and hopefully a little bit more stress free. So with that, and this again is generally available. Let's go ahead and proceed to a quick demo I've recorded of the Environment Hub. So we can flip to the next slide. And this is Power Platform Admin Center. There's a Manage Hub on the side, and it has a couple of different pages for environments, environment groups, being able to look at inventory of apps and flows across your tenant as well as tenant settings. In addition to that, looks like maybe the video has froze. thinking. Okay, I see it moving. Hopefully everyone else does as well. This is the bird's eye view of all environments in your tenant across Dynamics, low code, and so on. I'm going to click into one of my UDEs, my developer environment. I can see it has a CRM endpoint. It's in the United States. It is environment of type sandbox, but it is a developer environment. And it has an ERP endpoint as well. And so this is all managed together with Dataverse and ERP combined into a single environment. And it's managed fully here from PPAC. I can deploy new dynamic software. I can update users. I can manage the environment settings. And I could do all of the lifecycle operations like we talked about, copy, backup, restore. As Sarah mentioned, transactionless copy is on by default. And then I can select my target environment. So I can copy dev to dev. You can copy prod to dev, sandbox to sandbox, and so on. You cannot copy anything on top of production. That is prohibited. You'd have to first convert it to a sandbox before you wanted to overwrite the databases there. This is me setting up a new environment. I can make it a managed environment and put it into my environment group, as we talked about before. So this is then instantly picked up by the Dynamics implementation portal and all of my go live reviews and assessments. And then I can choose the template here. This is the template selector. And I'm choosing finance because my tenant purchased finance licenses. But if you had supply chain, you would see supply chain licenses and so on. Next up, of course, is the environment groups list page where I can see all my different ERP projects. And again, this is my Dynamics project for North America. And over on the rules tab, I've got a bunch of different options here, like the implementation project rule and other things that I might want to manage in tandem, like backup retention and so on. So again, this is just kind of a quick flyby of the Manage Hub. So that's how you get environments created, updated, and so on. Now we want to talk about some of the different ways you can change the software in those environments. So we'll talk a little bit about servicing and maintenance. We can move to the next slide. So there's really kind of two types of getting software changed in these environments. First, of course, is the Microsoft software, so the actual F&O version. This can be updated by Microsoft in a proactive way. This can also be updated manually by you if you wanted to get ahead of our update schedule. So you can actually click into the apps in the environment, find the Finance and Operations Provisioning app, and if there is a newer version available, you will see that in the drop-down list. So this allows you to proactively say, I want to go from 10.043 to 10.044 and so on. There's also, of course, preview versions. Those are only available in early release geos. So I think I saw a couple questions about that in the chat. You'll only be able to see the preview versions if you deploy your environment to a preview region with the early release updates turned on. And that's a choice that you make when you create the environment. You can't change your mind later. So an important point. And unfortunately, we only have a few regions that have preview features like Europe, US, and I believe there's one or two more. So they're not widely available in all geos, unfortunately. Unified packaging, we talked about this from the developer perspective earlier. This is how you can deploy your own code and customizations, things from ISVs and so on. This is done through packaging, and all packages are built in Visual Studio. So, Azure DevOps. So if we go to the next slide, we can take a look at some of the updates around pausing. So for the Microsoft updates in LCS, of course, we have this whole calendaring system and pausing, and there's a lot of anxiety when the pausing's not working and so on. Over many, many years, we've gotten feedback. This just is untenable, and certainly retail customers, commerce customers would like to update not on the weekend, preferably. And so we've taken all of that into account and are building this new maintenance experience where not only can you choose the time of day, but you can choose exactly which day of the week you would like us to be proactive in terms of updating F&O for you. And you can choose if you would like every update or to just get 2 updates a year, which is the every other option. In addition, this is available through REST API, and so that's going to be available on Power Platform API's documentation here in the next week or so, and we will have tutorials on how you can use PowerShell to update the various environments that you have in terms of update settings. With that, I think the next slide is around the packaging that we were talking about. So the unified packaging, all of that is built in Azure DevOps. So when you check in your X++ as a developer, it goes into Azure DevOps into a repo. From there, you can have it build nightly, build instantly, right, and create a package. That package can have all of your X++ code. It can have multiple different Dataverse solutions. It's all a zip with other zip folders inside of it, just nested folders. And so all of that can be bundled together so you can deploy essentially a cross-platform solution in one shot. And the nice part about that is that the same code you're checking in, if you have a project already in LCS and a new project spinning up in PPAC, the same code you check in, you can build both packages simultaneously. You can build the old one in the software deployable format for LCS, and you can build the new format for the PPAC environments. And last but certainly not least, all of this can be done using service principals on the PPAC side. So you can have a credential-less application with permissions of system customizer at a minimum on the Dataverse side. And that is all you need to deploy X++ code to dev, test, prod, and so on. So no longer do you have to have a user account with multi-factor authentication turned off and hoping that nothing bad happens, or worst case, waking up in the middle of the night to click buttons to do it off hours. Now you can do everything using all of the power of Azure DevOps using service principals. You can have multiple different approvers, different gates, right, and have like success metrics. You could wait for healthy or error signals from app insights before automatically moving to the next stage. All of this is now in the hands of the customer to decide what is their process, how many checks and balances do they need, and where do they need to capture those before moving forward. And again, all of this is also generally available. Okay,
Awesome.
I think we can move forward.
More and more automations for everyone now. Cool.
Certainly no lag.
Yeah, let's talk about just some more new features has come up. You might know those, but just still want to share. We did hear feedback, hey, we have transaction-less copy in F&O, what we do in CE side. In CE, when you do copy, right, you will see everything, which will bring all the data, all customization schema. You also have option of customization schema only. This will do the minimal in CE, and you can have transaction-less copy as well, which will bring reduced transactions, right? No transactions in your finance and operations environment. So if you are looking for most minimal copy, you can go for schema in data customization schema in Dataverse, but also only masters and setups in finance and operations. So this results in, of course, much smaller database target if you are looking for that one here. We also created a FastTrack solution. The reason for this one was we were hearing the signals from many customers. We have majority of our sandbox in LCS, but not using Power Platform Admin Center yet as sandbox, and we also want to use transitionless copy. So we do have a FastTrack asset under GitHub, and you can use it for these two scenarios. If you are looking for transaction-free copy, you can use that script. But if you are looking for a specific data cleanup for some of your large tables, which you obviously can see from Power Platform Admin Center environment and see your top tables consuming data, you can also run those cleanups as well through this GitHub solution. So I highly recommend if you're looking for storage cleanup in your sandbox environments, you can use one of these two options currently in your LCS-based sandbox environments too. We also are coming up with unified admin user management. So what it means is right now, let's say if you created a Power Platform Admin Center environment, a UDE or unified sandbox, you will have to create assign admin role in two places, one in PPAC, one in finance and operations. With this feature, not anymore. What will happen is finance and operations will be locked down, just read only. And all you do management of admin creation, update, deletion, all through Power Platform Admin Center. It's currently in private preview or coming soon with some, we found some feedback and we are working on those feedback to improve it. So we will open it up again for private preview and then it will go through public preview and GA cycles. Commerce, right? So we did see on the chat, many customers, many of you are asking, hey, how will the commerce come? Commerce private preview is already available for CSUs starting December 2025. If you want to join private preview, please let us know. We're happy to join you. Once the private preview is successful, somewhere next quarter, we will start the public preview. And based on the public preview feedback, we will also go for the GA of CSU and PPAC. So you already have the commerce trial license. You will be also able to create commerce sandbox dev environments with the CSU as well. So that's also coming soon. Now we are coming towards the end. So let's talk about just few key takeaways. Lane?
Absolutely. We've been on this journey for many years, and I think that's been evident in all of your participation at each successive stage of the process as we've marched, I would say, slowly but steadily towards this generally available moment. And we're just super excited to share that it seems we're finding a really solid market fit. We've got thousands and thousands of environments created by customers and partners. Many developer environments, many sandboxes, and now we've achieved over 100 production environments deployed as well. And we have a number of customers, I believe around 5 now that launched and went live before the end of last calendar year. We're looking forward to seeing that 10 or 100x this year as well. So again, all of this has been done to unify the experience, bring all of Dynamics 365 into a single admin portal, a single admin set of functions. And from there, we can all continue to improve and gain features together instead of in different silos. So we're just really excited to see this level of usage and commitment by our customers. And we look forward to seeing it grow much more exponentially as we go forward. And I think with that, we have a few things that we'd like to share just on what's coming and also what's not coming. And then we've got some common FAQs. So, Saurabh, back to you.
Yeah. So I think let's take a takeaway, right? Hey, in LCS, what capabilities we have and what's the future of those ones. So some of the ones which are not going in Power Platform Admin Center. We did talk about, of course, what's there in Power Platform Admin Center, but it's also important to know what's not going to be there and what is the workaround for those ones. Implementation methodology, LCS had that. We saw across customers, majority of them are really not using LCS as the primary source for implementation methodology. It's done outside via DevOps or other tools. Please continue using those ones. We also have implementation portal. In implementation portal, it does have some implementation methodology, initiate, implement, deploy, all those things. So you can continue using that. Project settings, project users is also moving to implementation portal where you can have partners, customers, all users related to that project in that implementation portal. Organization users going to M365 Admin Center. Translation service has moved to Dynamics Translation Connector. Subscriptions is not required. It's all going to M365 Admin Center. Subscriptions was more for CHE cloud-hosted environments. Those are not required anymore since there is no CHE in Power Platform Admin Center. It's all Microsoft managed environments. Shared asset library or asset library is gone. Now it's all through DevOps or DevOps storage. So if you look at your packages, code deployments, all is happening through DevOps, through your release pipelines. So that's where your assets will live and will be deployed to your target environments. Solution management, so some of ISVs or your solutions, how you or add-ins also how you install, you will be installing that through install apps, but ISVs will be going through the app source. Build environment already, even in LCS, we have hosted agents. So it's full-fledged hosted agents there. Alert service, not longer using it. BPM is another one. We did saw the data based on usage across customers, and majority was really not using it. And it was anyways just one-time business process management. And after after that, once it synced to DevOps, it was really not taking any changes. And we saw typically customers were maintaining it outside in Excel. We do have a very, very rich set of business process catalog, aka .ms business process catalog. Highly recommend to watch it. Download that large business process catalog, and you can also take that Excel and connect to your DevOps, and it will bring those business processes to your DevOps there. Task Recorder is another one. This is also we are not taking in future. The reason is many, and one of them is FNO is not just stick to FNO UI anymore. Even if you look at today, if you want to use inventory visibility, if you want to use demand planning app, if you want to use many other features or Copilot, it has already expanded from the UI side also outside finance and operations UI. So Task Recorder was really not helping in end-to-end automation of those business processes. If you still want to use it, you can use it, but you have to save it outside LCS in your local repository or SharePoint somewhere. So these options are there. So, yep. Also want to talk about new customers, right? If you are a new customer, how you can transition. We did cover, I think, most of it in our session today. Onboarding, implementation portal. If you wanted to deploy or create a cloud-hosted environment, please create a UDE. Or if you want to just try out some scenarios or features, use trial environments, update the environment admin. And that option is there also through environment and user management now. This is the unified admin user management where you will be able to change your environment admin. Monitoring is going to App Insights. Batch telemetry is available. In fact, a new DMF telemetry is also coming. So more and more telemetry will be added to App Insights in future as well. So highly recommend their customization deployment happening through DevOps or Pack CLI, sandbox creation, production creation. All is through Power Platform Admin Center, copy, restore, delete. Let's go to some frequently asked questions. So maybe I will start with this one, Lane, and you can answer this for us, right? What is the rollout plan for unified admin experience, and should ongoing projects switch over from LCS to PPAC?
Yeah, it's one of the most common questions we've been getting in the last couple of months. I think certainly since some of the emails and comms went out about the end of new projects in LCS. Right now, the guidance is if you already have a project in LCS, you can stay there. That's fine. If you just started and you have, a long runway to get to your go live date, we'd obviously recommend going to PPAC if you can stomach the change at this point. But if you're already well down the path in LCS, that's fine. You can stay there. You can get your production environment and go live. Eventually, you will get migrated once we have that process available. So hopefully that helps. Commerce customers are not yet included in this, as well as 2012 to cloud upgrade or on-premise to online migration. So there are some caveats there that we're looking to close. But for the main line, new projects, finance, supply chain projects, those will all move to PPAC starting February 16th. There was also a question about FNO on-prem. That will also remain in LCS for a period of time. We are looking to decouple FNO on-prem entirely from the cloud because it is an on-prem product. And we'd like you to be able to install, upgrade, delete environments without having to do that through a cloud web portal. So more to come on that as well. But hopefully that helped answer the question.
Yeah. And please, Rich, Hatham, please jump in. If I know you guys are watching chats, if anything related to this question, we want to club here. Lane, do you also want to touch about the migration of existing LCS projects with this question?
Yes. So with migration, we are looking to build that process now. It's not going to be an extended downtime event. We're not changing the infrastructure. We're not changing the URLs, the database. We're not changing your code either. So it's primarily changing the control plane from LCS to PPAC on an individual environment basis. The prerequisite to migration is that your ERP environment in LCS is connected to a Power Platform environment using Power Platform integration. We are at, I believe, almost 100%. There might be one or two environments lying around that are not, but that one-to-one mapping is where F&O will move to in terms of management. So F&O is already linked to Power Platform. You can see the URLs, the environment IDs, and so on over there. Eventually, that will be the environment that has F&O inside of it. And at that point, you can manage it from PPAC. We would like to make it all self-service. So you can, as a customer, click into LCS. You'll see a new migrate button on the environment and can choose when to do that. And you can do that for each sandbox that you'd like to migrate and then eventually production at the end. And then, of course, we don't have any timelines right now to share around forced migrations and so on, like due dates, but we'd like to make it available so customers who want to migrate can do it when works best with their schedule.
Yep. No, that's a great point. Let's talk about another one. Can we convert a sandbox environment to a production environment and vice versa? Right, under the unified agreements, are there any downtime or constraints? So answer is yes, you can convert any sandbox to a production or a production to a sandbox for reasons, right? Please be careful when you create a production environment, right? We will get signal that you are live and you are going to be live and using production. So please consider that. But make sure you are not just able to copy a sandbox data to production slot directly, right? I think, Lane, you mentioned it already. Some of the differences we saw in the chat, right? What are the differences in terms of that? The environments are sized based on the user license. So elastic compute or auto scaling is already in place. The differences is more in terms of downtime, disaster recovery, cross-region support of those environments. So, of course, in production, we have much more telemetry and also much more stronger downtime, DR, those kind of support. The best part is, of course, with conversion, the URL, IDs, your integration endpoints, right? You don't need to change any of those ones as long as you configure them well for your target environment. So it's a really good one. Even in Dynamics 365 CE implementations, they use it all the time, convert to a sandbox to prod or vice versa. So now in F&O world also, we can leverage it. Another great question, I'm sure many of you have, how does environment sizing works and scaling works in this unified admin experience? And what does it mean for performance testing, especially tier 4, tier 5 environments we still have? Lane, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, so all user licenses that you purchase provide something that we call entitlements. Of course, all of this information is in our MS Learn documentation and licensing guides and so on. They're lovely reading material when you have the time. But when you purchase these user licenses, they give you two kinds of entitlements that we want to focus on. One is storage, and that is in the form of gigabytes. And so there were questions in the chat on, how many environments can I have? Can I have more than one production environment? The answer is you can have as many environments as you want. The type is not important, and that's all based on your storage. So if you have a gigabyte free, that gives you a new environment. Well, then the obvious next question is, well, what's the performance of that environment? All the environments under a given customer tenant will have the same maximum compute potential. So and that's based on the other entitlement that you get from your licenses called Power Platform requests. And so the more user licenses you buy, the more PPRs you get. You also can just buy Power Platform requests. So if you don't need any more users or you're early on in your implementation, you're not going to buy all your user licenses up front. You can just buy Power Platform requests, and that will instantly help scale out or raise the maximum scale for any of your environments. So let's say based on the computation, we decide you can have up to 10 AOSs on any given environment. All of your environments could scale up to 10 if you were using them all equally and to their maximum. So that includes interactive usage, batch usage, and so on. If no one's logging into the environment, it's going to scale down, and it'll scale all the way down to, I believe, 2 AOSs. So, and again, all of this does not apply to UDE. That's a special circumstance because we need a single AOS that you can connect to with Visual Studio to recycle the X++ code there. So developer environments notwithstanding, all of your performance testing should be done in a sandbox, a regular sandbox, and it should be able to achieve the same or similar performance as production. You should be able to have full confidence that your testing in sandbox is what you would be able to achieve in production because you can take that same sandbox and convert it to prod later, right? So the scale will be equal.
Yeah. And I think another point, subscription estimator, right? In LCS, you used to fill subscription estimator, Excel sheet, and upload it, and that was also a factor in sizing a production environment. Not anymore. Now it's just based on your user licenses and also based on your PPRs if you have purchased extra Power Platform requests. Another question we get a lot, right, is environment monitoring in LCS, right? So the answer for that one is App Insights. Of course, there is some level of monitoring tracking is available in Power Platform Admin Center. It's more for Dataverse or Power Platform. We will definitely add more for finance and operations apps as well. But yes, App Insights is where we are fully focused on and adding. There is already a lot of telemetry. Batch telemetry went GA. We are working on next set of telemetries to be added in App Insights, like DMF is coming to. So even for ad hoc SQL queries, right? Yeah, we will not have that live support, but yes, definitely long running and blocking queries. Those will be in App Insights too. Lynn, am I missing anything on this one?
No, I think you covered it. That was great.
Okay. What about this one? LCS features are being replaced, let's say project governance, asset library, BPM, and maybe we can also add about build environment here. Lane, do you want to answer it? And I know we are over time, team. We'll try to wrap up very quickly here in next few minutes.
Yeah, again, it's all about unification, right? So things like the asset library, there is no concept of that in Power Platform Admin Center. You build your code, either low code directly into Dataverse, or you manage it offline in something like source control, right? And you just deploy code to target environments. That's all done using our REST APIs or any of our ALM tooling like PackCLI, the Power Platform build tasks, and so on. So everything there is all about unification and alignment. There are some very unique things to F&O like BPM. Those are moving out to more modern approaches. And then, of course, there are some things like the task recorder that just haven't had any funding from various teams in many years, and they may actually get deprecated as part of this move as well. So consolidation, simplification, and unification are the goals of the day.
Yeah. What's changing with licensing and number of sandbox environments a customer can have?
Yeah, and I may have already kind of touched on this before,
Yeah.
but there's no arbitrary limit. It's not like as a customer you can have 3 environments like in LCS. So you don't have to go back to your purchasing department and say, hey, I need another environment. Let's go add it to our enterprise agreement or anything like that. As long as you have available gigabytes, which is an entitlement you get from your licenses, then you can deploy more environments. And what those environments are and what software they have is up to you. And that's all based, again, on your licenses and available storage.
Sounds good. Team, we do have some of the resources slide too. So we will definitely have this uploaded in community site in few days. So and the recording as well. Rich, Haitham, I know we are time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh. On that note, we do have a short survey in the Q&A panel, and we'd love to hear your feedback on today's session, as well as what you'd like to see in future events. I know that we have a lot of questions there. Thank you all for submitting so many questions. We do use these to help incorporate into and update our FAQs that we have posted out there on Learn. So we will be combing through these questions. If there are any that are as of yet still unanswered, we'll make sure to get those addressed, and we will be updating our published FAQs. As Saurabh mentioned, the recording will be made available on the Dynamics Tech Talk community site and on the Microsoft Dynamics 365 community YouTube channel in coming weeks. We want to thank you all for attending, and especially thank you to our presenters and the audience. We hope you have a fantastic day ahead. Thank you very much.